I told y'all. This video is brought to you by the Officer Tatum Store. The Officer Tatum Store. Get the merch link in the description section. Like and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell so you get notification anytime I go live and make a video. Also, download the podcast, the B Tatum Show podcast, on all podcast platforms, and text Tatum to 53445. Y'all know what to do. Let's get into this. Ladies and gentlemen, ladies, Amir Locke. Y'all remember we were talking about this whole scenario. Me and all of the police experts were trying to explain to people what the possible outcome or what the possible scenario was that led to the death of this young man, and also explaining search warrants. So I cannot wait to show you guys the extent of a search warrant and all that police have to go through to get a verified search warrant with a no-knock exception, so that people who are naysayers and believe, oh, no-knock warrant should be abolished. And let me show you what it takes to get one. Because if you don't know that, then you're just talking at the side of your neck. Let me play this new information that came out about Amir Locke, and then we're going to look at the search warrant because it was released. And I'm going to link both of them so you can look at it for yourself. Roll the film.
As the courts unsealed the search warrants connected to last week's deadly SWAT team raid in a downtown Minneapolis apartment complex. That's where Amir Locke was shot and killed as law enforcement investigated a St. Paul murder. The documents show authorities wanted a no-knock warrant to protect the public and the officers making entry from potentially armed suspects.
Paul Bloom spent the day combing through those documents. And Paul, again, to reiterate what we have been reporting, Amir Locke was not named in those papers.
Amir Locke apparently sleeping on the couch when officers unlock the door, then rush in shouting. The body camera footage capturing Locke startled awake under the blanket and grabbing a handgun before he's quickly shot and killed by Officer Mark Hanneman. The warrant providing a clearer picture of the events leading up to the deadly raid and the St. Paul murder investigation that led law enforcement to the downtown apartment tower.
Okay. Y'all get a part of it. This ain't it. I'm going to show you the whole thing. I'm going to show you how extensive this is. Y'all get it at this point? They had a reason to be there. They were looking for homicide suspects who They took the life of another person in a very violent and criminal way. Roll the film.
On January 10th, Otis Elder was shot and killed in the capital city. Detectives eventually tracking down video evidence of a stolen Mercedes, fleeing the scene and returning soon after to Bolero Flats. Further surveillance would identify suspects, including Locke's cousin, Mackay Speed. Their social media accounts capturing them posing with guns and driving around in fancy cars. Police believe they were involved in several other violent crimes. The search warrants were for 3 units connected to Speed, his family, and known associates. They're all signed by Cahill. The warrant for 701 reading in part, quote,
all right, let me, y'all heard a little bit of, let me do the interpretation for you. So the judge signed the warrants, right? That's what happens. It looks like the boy Amir Locke was caught up in the middle of living I don't know why people don't believe me. Like, I just be making this stuff up. He caught in the middle of being around, kicking it, hanging out with his cousins who are cold-blooded killers. And I don't want to hear nobody say, well, he didn't know. He was just, I mean, it's unfortunate. I don't think he was the one that the police were there for. But you know your cousin are killers. These dudes are riding around with guns, drugs, everything. Stone cold killers. But mama and them won't get on TV and say, his cousin and them shouldn't have been doing that. We told that boy, don't be hanging around them. Because and that lifestyle is hell or jail. Don't get caught up with these boys if you ain't doing nothing. But I guarantee you, he wasn't just not doing nothing. I bet you $1 million he was associated with them. And if he wasn't, why is he at the house with a gun on him, sleeping on the couch of some cold-blooded killers? Okay. All right, let's look at the warrant because I want you guys to see it. I'm going to make it a little smaller because it's a lot of material and you're going to get overwhelmed. So this is a search warrant, 16 pages to be exact, that it takes them to write the search warrant. Now, I'm not going to go through everything. I'll put it in the description section. You see it yourself, but this is the search warrant. Now, and this is the evidence that they are trying to collect. Evidence, blood evidence, firearms, electronic devices, marijuana, receipts, paper, all this different stuff, all these different things. Also, the people that are involved, the exact clothes that they were wearing. This is how detailed the warrant has to be. These are the people you look for. These are the clothes you're trying to obtain. From all of the evidence and surveillance that you've gotten to pick out these criminals and what they look like and what clothes they have so you can investigate the death of somebody else, somebody else's loved one, somebody else's family member who was cut short. Then they go to the apartment complex, talk about all the different things, and then here comes the affidavit of service. This is what I've been talking about that people need to understand. You have to thoroughly explain why you need to search someone's house, why you need to look for someone, and why you need a no-knock exception. So we're going to start with the first part on the sergeant's articulation of why he can even be qualified to do a search warrant. I'm just going to read the first part of it. Matter of fact, I'll make it a little bigger for you. This sergeant, an affidavit is sworn to these facts. He's a licensed police officer and member of the St. Paul Police Department and have been since 1995. He goes through, he's post-certified. He goes through all his credentials. He's a homicide detective. He does homicide, aggravated assault, terrorist threats, kidnapping. This is all of his credentials. You have to put your resume on this doggone affidavit to start with, because you have to have enough experience to validate your conclusions that you've made through all of this evidence. It goes on. This is the amount of information that you have to put together in order to be taken seriously on a search warrant. Dates, names, Instagram. I mean, moment by moment, what you have done in an investigation, forensic evidence, all of this stuff. You just keep going. You keep going. You keep going. That's the end of this page. It keeps going. And then after all of that information, now you got to justify why you need a no-knock exception. And this is how much they have to write to justify a no-knock exception, which is pretty dense. It says a nighttime search outside of the hours of 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. is necessary to prevent the loss and destruction or removal of the objects in the search, or to protect the searchers or the public, because the homicide at 502 North, whatever, St. Paul, was a violent robbery where the suspect shot the victim with a .223 caliber, which is a rifle. It could have been an AR pistol or a rifle. The suspect then fled to the Flats apartment in Minneapolis, where Mr. Speed, which is one of the guys there. And if you look at it, when you read it, one of the witnesses was on the phone with the victim who got murdered and said that he was doing a drug deal. Surprise, surprise. And that guys got in the back and said, hey, if he don't want to give it up, shoot that in. Let me see if I can find it in here. Shoot that in is what he said. I'm sure that was a phrase of endearment. He said if he don't want to give it up, shoot him. So they pretty much what they did was they robbed him and murdered him with an AR, with a .223. And so you know that scene wasn't too good. But I want you guys to understand that this is not the cops just willy-nilly going to somebody's house and accidentally shooting the wrong person. It's the fact that these people are so dangerous. They've been involved in multiple crimes, multiple violent crimes around the city. They're online posting with weapons, potentially the murder weapon, driving around in stolen cars, selling drugs. They're violent criminals, have a history with police, violence with guns, fleeing from police. All of this is in the search warrant. They have a history of that. These are all the apartments that they're associated with. Unfortunately, Amir Locke, hanging out with his thugged out cousins, or potentially being a thugged out accomplice. I mean, not an accomplice. Let me not say accomplice, but he's probably thugged out just as much as they are. He probably ain't to that point yet. But he's still on their couch with a gun in his hand. Don't that paint the picture for some people? Why would Amir Locke be sleeping? It ain't just because he's a Second Amendment gun licensed person who just decided to carry a gun. No, it's because the cousins he kicking it with, the houses that he's staying over, these dudes are killers and drug dealers. And so the reason he's sitting on the couch with a gun in his hand is because they're in this violent lifestyle of do or die, kill or be killed. And so the young man got to sleep on the couch at his cousin's house with a gun in his hand because somebody may bust in there and start busting. Unfortunately, the police were the one that busted in and started busting. It's unfortunate, but don't blame the cops. Blame Speed and them, who murdered somebody, who probably got people looking for him. That's why they sleeping on the couch with guns. And who also brought this drama to their little cousin sleeping on the couch. I hope this is clarification for people. You don't just get a search warrant because you just woke up one day. This is a document full of documentation and information. Field, dates, times, evidence, witnesses, witness statement, affidavits. Is all of this. Then they have to explain why they need to do a no-knock exception. And I'm going to give it to you guys and read it for yourself. Anyway, hope this is a little additional information. Hope people can make a conscious and relevant decision on what you think is going on based on what I've shown you. Like and subscribe to the channel. I love you guys. Hopefully more information to come out. Stop blaming the police. Start looking at these knuckleheads out here committing or living a life of violence. It's their fault. It ain't the cops' fault. They served a legitimate search warrant with 16 pages of evidence. All right. I'll see y'all in the next one. I'm out.